For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. The House Select Committee investigating the deadly January 6th insurrection and Donald Trump's role in it will hold its third public hearing today. The focus will be on Trump's efforts to stay in power by pressuring then Vice President Mike Pence to reject the electoral count. Powers Pence didn't have, but a strategy from conservative law professor John Eastman that Trump latched onto. Testimony is expected from the Vice President's counsel, Greg Jacob, who fended off Trump's plan, and a retired federal judge, Michael Ludwig, who called the plan incorrect at every turn. The committee has also asked Georgia House Republican Barry Loudermilk in for an interview to discuss a Capitol tour he gave that included basement tunnels to a group of people the day before the attack. Pacifica station KPFA will provide live coverage of the hearing today, which starts at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. European leaders of France, Germany, Italy, and Romania are in Kiev in a show of solidarity with Ukraine, where they've pledged support for the country under heavy bombardment from Russia. French President Emmanuel Macron says there are signs of war crimes in a Kiev suburb after massacres by Russian forces. He spoke in the town of Irpin today. His comments were translated by Al Jazeera.
You are here in Irpin, on a site that has been destroyed. Indeed, the Russian army stopped in several other cities nearby. Massacres have been perpetrated, and we have had the first traces of what are war crimes.
The meeting with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky comes a day after the Biden administration committed $1 billion in military support for Ukraine. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced it at a meeting with NATO generals in Brussels, where Ukraine is largely the focus.
We've built tremendous momentum for donations and delivery of military assistance. And after this afternoon's discussions, we're not just going to maintain that momentum, we're going to move even faster and push even harder.
The U.S. and its allies are working to provide longer-range weapons they say can make a difference in the fight where Ukrainian forces are outnumbered and outgunned by Russia, like in the Donbass region. The aid will include anti-ship missile launchers, howitzers, and more rounds for high-mobility artillery rocket systems that U.S. forces are training Ukrainian troops to use. 2 U.S. veterans from Alabama who were in Ukraine helping in its defense against Russia haven't been heard from in days and are missing. 27-year-old Andy Tynock Huynh of Trinity and 39-year-old Alexander Drucke of Tuscaloosa. The State Department says it's looking into reports that Russian or Russian-backed separatists in Ukraine had captured at least 2 American citizens. If confirmed, they would be the first Americans fighting for Ukraine known to have been captured since the war began February 24th. Back in the U.S., Democratic senators are urging President Biden to immediately issue an executive order with detailed actions to defend the right to an abortion. Senators Patty Murray of Washington and Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts say the need is urgent, with the Supreme Court expected to hand down a ruling within days overturning the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision that legalized abortion nationwide. About 24 Democratic senators wrote a letter detailing executive orders they say would pass legal muster. They want federal agencies to increase access to medication abortions and provide travel vouchers and child care for people who will need to travel out of state for the procedure. The senators also want the administration to consider offering abortion services on federal land within states that have banned the procedure. President Joe Biden marked Pride Month by signing historic executive orders to counter what the White House says are discriminatory legislative attacks on the LGBTQ community by Republican-controlled states. That includes banning conversion therapy, which is a discredited practice that aims to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity. He also urged Congress to approve the Equality Act. It would amend the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to also prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity. The House has approved the measure, but it stalled in the Senate. The Federal Reserve raised its interest rates 0.75% Tuesday. Chair Jerome Powell warned a similar rate hike could come as soon as July. That makes it more costly to borrow money as the U.S. faces a 4-decade high inflation. Former Labor Secretary under the Clinton administration and Berkeley professor Robert Reich slammed the Fed's rate hike and warned it fails to treat the underlying conditions and could make things worse. COVID-19 vaccines for the nation's youngest infants, toddlers, and preschoolers could be available to the age group soon. An advisory panel for the Food and Drug Administration recommended the vaccines from Moderna and Pfizer for children 6 months to 5 years old. It's the only age group not yet eligible for vaccination against the coronavirus. If the FDA authorizes the shots, there's one more review at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. After all the regulatory hurdles are cleared, the shots could be available as early as next week at doctors' offices, hospitals, and pharmacies. I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.